I don't think there is any more of a perfect and clear demonstration of what's happening in the country than what happened to me this week. Because there you see the whole thing in effect. We have this debate. The debate is about, is the media liberal or conservative? They say somehow it's about equal. We say, no, the media is liberal. We win the debate. I get banned off of Twitch, right? Destiny goes to his friends in Twitch. Oh, by the way, don't tell your audience about this. I'm going to get Nick banned. For what? For saying mixed marriages shouldn't be promoted. Destiny out there openly advocating political violence, pornography of children, and pedophilia. He's fine. So, okay, I guess that's normal, right? And then on top of that, then you get the double standard with the violence. We're going to hold literal congressional hearings talking about white nationalist violence, and the only people out there talking about violence is the left. What are right-wing people saying? Even people like Richard Spencer, even like the most alt-right, Wignat, white nationalist types, even them, what are they saying? They're like running for weird elections. You've got like Paul Nealon, Patrick Little. They're talking about sort of separating off, going to their own area, retreating somewhere else. And that's on that end of the spectrum. Over here in the campus conservative circle, we're saying, hey, please, like, leave us alone. And what's the left saying? Punch Nazis. We're going to throw grenades through your window. We're going to kill everyone. We are going to outbreed you. It's just like the world's upside down and inside out and sideways and back and forth and everywhere around. And I don't know. I just feel like the world doesn't make any sense ever, right? I mean, maybe it never did make any sense, but it certainly doesn't now. So very interesting that that's the double standard that goes on. Will Twitch take action? I don't know. It remains to be seen. It's kind of funny. It took 12 hours for them to kick me off for saying, you know, maybe mixed relationships shouldn't be promoted, but you've got 400,000 views on a video of him saying, I want right-wingers killed, and it's nothing. No ban, no suspension. So it's very interesting the way that works. Very interesting. Take notes, take notes, because that's what the next 25, 30 years is going to look like, and it'll have the force of law. But I think on this show, we do try to be honest. There's irony, there's jokes, when there are things that are crossing the line that I want to say, but I can't really say. The aftermath of the Christchurch shooting continues to unfold. It started out with the gun ban in New Zealand, and then it was the Facebook ban against so-called white separatists and white nationalists. So they did that last week. A congressional hearing was called today in the Judiciary Committee, and this is according to the Examiner. It says the hearing included representatives from Facebook and Google who were appearing on a panel with 6 other witnesses, including civil rights activists, the father of 2 victims of an Islamophobic attack, and also you had the senior vice president of the ADL, and Candace Owens of Turning Point USA. And it's interesting because I watched a good deal of the hearing. There's just a little note before I get into the actual substance of the hearing. I watched basically the whole hearing, and everybody was talking about it on Twitter. It was trending on Twitter, things like white nationalism, Candace Owens, like the major subjects of the hearing were trending, and everybody was reporting on this. But then when I went in to do actual research on, trying to find the facts of the hearing and some of the background information, I couldn't find a single article about the actual hearing itself. Do you want to know what every article was about instead? So if you Google, for example, white nationalist hearing, because the hearing today was about white nationalism, it's what it is. If you Google that, you won't find an article that says, today a hearing was held in the Judiciary Committee discussing white nationalism or right-wing extremism. There's no article that says that. Every article from NBC, CNN, all the major sources, instead of reporting on the actual hearing, do you want to know what they report on instead? They report on the fact that during the hearing, they were streaming the hearing on YouTube. And on the YouTube stream, all the comments in the live chat for the stream were racist and anti-Semitic and other hateful things, other bigoted things. So isn't that kind of interesting? It's interesting enough that they're holding this hearing, but then the way that they present it to the public is not that, obviously the white nationalists are not really winning if Congress and the biggest social media companies in the world and the biggest political advocacy companies in the country are all getting together talking about it. But what's the article about instead? About how, but people are being racist in the live chat. You've got the head of Google, the head of Facebook, the U.S. Congress, the head of the ADL. They're all sitting there in D.C. together talking about white nationalism. And understand, like, white nationalism is not the threat here. If we're talking about terrorism, extremism, violence, it's so not a problem. And even if you take the FBI statistics at face value, it's wildly disproportionate in the opposite direction. It's underrepresented, right? You know, you look at Islamic terror, which is 50% of the attacks, the majority, vast majority of the killings and attacks. That's obviously not the problem. So you've got all these powerful people together in Washington, D.C., sitting around to discuss this non-issue. And that's a demonstration of force to say we're the power here. We're going to make sure this doesn't happen. And instead of NBC reporting on, yeah, all these big people are here together to quash white nationalism, they're raising the alarm bell, right? They're setting off the alarm because people were being racist in the live chat. Yeah, you know, they've got the heads of Facebook and Google in a congressional hearing talking about how they're going to solve this political problem, which is probably 100 people strong. But on the other side, on the other hand of that equation, you know, you've got people saying things on the live chat of YouTube. So it's pretty equal. I don't know who's going to win this one. I don't know. I think the white nationalists are taking over. Sure, you've got Facebook and Google and the ADL, but I mean, they've got that presence there on the live chat. I mean, any day now, that's going to spill out into the open. You're going to see laws. It's going to be Crystal Night all over again. I mean, like, give me a break. And that just tells you all the bias. I guess that tells you really all you need to know about it. But they come together in this hearing, and it's just so ridiculous. And I'm like trying to give it a shot. I'm trying to give it a chance. I always try to listen with an open mind. But right out of the gate, you get this black civil rights activist who says, and it's so fascinating. You get this black woman. She's from, I forget the exact name of it, but from some civil rights activist organization. And she starts out by saying, I come in peace. I don't want you to hear what I'm about to say as Republicans and Democrats. I don't want you to hear what I'm about to say as partisans. I want you to hear this as Americans. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll give her a chance. Maybe I'm just prejudiced. Maybe I'm a cynical old, you know, Joker type man, and I have all these preconceptions of what she's about to say. And then what does she lead with? Thomas Jefferson was a slave owner, and you know what he said about black people? He said they were dumb, and they have no love in their hearts, and our founding fathers were slave owners, and the whole history of the country is racist and anti-black, and everyone hates black people, and they call us monkeys, and I'm like, really? So we start out with, don't listen to this. Don't listen to this as partisans. We're all Americans, and the American founding fathers were racist, and American history is racist, and it's just all these different data points of racist this and racist that, and woe is me, and I'm a victim. And so that's basically how the hearing went on for the bulk of it. You got, of course, some Jewish lady from the ADL doing the usual song and dance. Even the guest of Candace Owens. Candace Owens brought some Zionist guy named, what was his name? He had a very Jewish name, Mort. And he had Tourette's, which was a little bit comical. So even Candace Owens brought a special guest, as like Candace Owens representing the right. Ostensibly, she was invited by Republicans. She brought a guest, the Zionist Jew, who was speaking out against Palestinians and the BDS movement. And so even the ostensibly right-wing person on the panel is a Jewish complainer talking about anti-Semitic attacks, oy vey, but it's the Palestinians this time. So I guess that's supposed to be like based in red pill then, because the real racists are the Muslims. So the whole panel is just dogging on Whitey, you're a white nationalist, no, you're an anti-Semite, no, you're a this, you're a that, you know, all the names. Really unproductive. It was just sort of a partisan thing. But the takeaway from this white nationalist hearing is this is the new strategy. This is what the left does. They know they can't use racist anymore. They know they can't use Nazi anymore. They know they can't use white supremacist anymore. White nationalist is the latest one they've come up with. And actually, white nationalist, to me, is the most effective. Because white nationalist is a little bit descriptive of the kind of battle that's happening in the country. This pejorative, in terms of what the left wants it to do, is actually very effective. Because you think about what the left's goals are, which is transforming the country, revolutionizing it against the traditional Christian, white, so-called heteronormative state of the country that existed previously, and replacing it with this multiracial, queer, genderless, deracinated, whatever kind of country you want to call it. And to call somebody like Donald Trump a white nationalist, to call somebody like Stephen King a white nationalist, somebody like Faith Goldy or myself a white nationalist, it's factually not accurate. What a white nationalist is in the United States or in Canada, in the North American context, is somebody who wants an all-white country. Either they want to make the United States as it exists an all-white country through deportations or some other kinds of policies, or they want to create an all-white country by carving it out of one of the states through secession or having some kind of breakaway separatist movement. But that's what a white nationalist means if you're talking about the strict definition. And nobody who is called a white nationalist, Tucker Carlson, Trump, Steve King, me, others like us, want that to happen. However, where it does become effective is what we're trying to protect is the heritage, the legacy. We are trying to salvage the culture of a white European, characteristically European Christian traditional America. So in the sense of what an actual white nationalist is, we don't meet that definition. But we are nationalists. We are nationalists pining for the olden days, the traditional days of America that did have that European texture of life. So is it correct? No, but does it sort of sound correct? Does it have a connotation that might ring true for a lot of people? I think they blur the lines. I think they have this fuzzy definition that lacks precision, and they can throw that around, and in the framework, in the context of their political goals, it actually makes a lot of sense, right? If you're a left-wing person and you're trying to make America multiracial, aka not white, and you're trying to make America not Christian and make America not traditionalist or whatever you want to call it, Christian, I guess, then people who oppose what you're trying to do, I guess you could say, would be white nationalists, even if that's not exactly what the definition is. And this is their playbook. This is their playbook for 2020. All they have to do is pick a word, make it stick, and they use that as the pretext to get rid of people offline. Well, the New Zealand shooter is a white nationalist, and he talked about similar things to Donald Trump. And he talked about similar things to, as Faith Goldy talked about, or Bake Alaska talked about, or whoever else. He was violent. He believes these things. They believe these things. You solve for X, they must be violent, and therefore we have a legitimate reason to ban them while not really doing anything that's improper or borderline illegal or whatever else, anything that would raise suspicions. And so that's really the strategy here. That's a strategy on the part of the left, is to paint everybody who is, again, opposed to this revolutionary agenda as white nationalist, and that fuzzy definition, those connotations. Again, in the context of their agenda for the country, it does sort of make sense. Who would be rebelling against the pausing of America? Well, of course, only white nationalists could do such a thing. And, I tweeted about this. I said, look, if we're going to have such a big problem with white nationalists, as Facebook is and Instagram, and they're trying to censor and shut down people targeting political ideologies, we should probably have a precise definition of what that is. If you're going to start banning people and taking away their platform to talk to 1.6 billion people, the most popular social media platform, and they have Instagram too. So if you add the monthly average users together, it's 2.4 billion people, Instagram plus Facebook. So before you deprive people of the biggest social media conglomerate in the history of the planet, maybe ever in human history, something on that scale, well, certainly something on that scale, maybe we should have some kind of a precise definition before we go banning people for falling under that category. If we define white nationalist as it's always been defined, again, it is that all-white homeland in America, either by taking over the government, having some kind of revolution, a secession, some kind of separatist movement. If that's a definition that everybody agrees upon, very few people fall under that group. Not even the alt-right falls under that group. I don't even think they define themselves as that outright. I'm not sure. I'm not one to speak for them. But I'm pretty sure people that are in that camp have been counter-signaling that stuff for a little while now. And I'm not trying to go out to bat for them. You know my feelings on them. But I'm talking about even them who are seen as, the new neo-Nazis or whatever. Even they are not really in that camp. So if that's the case, then you see it for exactly what it is, which is a pretext just to kick people offline. And people say, well, what's wrong with white nationalism? What's wrong with a white identity? They call anybody who speaks out in favor of the white man a white nationalist. That may all be fine and well. Maybe it is normal and natural to say that perhaps white people should have a homeland somewhere. Perhaps that's in Europe. Perhaps that's a European country. Who knows? while it's fine and well to say maybe that's a rational thing to say and shouldn't be censored, you understand the kind of pressure that we're under now.